Good afternoon, everybody. Thanks so much for joining us here for Football Fridays at the Eck. As we get ready to watch the Irish beat the Longhorns tomorrow night. And thank you for being here for a very special edition of Catching Up With. It's a recurring series of interviews we do with notable and interesting Notre Dame alums. And today we are so excited to have our special guest. He was a star on the football field here at Notre Dame. He spent 8 seasons in the NFL, and he's now one of the 2 hosts of the most popular sports radio show on the planet. Ladies and gentlemen, from the class of 1985, Mike Golic.
Thank you, everybody. Appreciate it. The 2 things. First, obviously, they promised somebody else here since so many people showed up. Did you guys say Digger was coming? And second, I appreciate the water, but would have had a beer. Just so we're all square on that. But great to be here.
We can talk to Dally about the beer, maybe.
Yeah, we can work on that, I'm sure. There might be a beer or 2 around here somewhere.
All right, so for those of you in the audience, be prepared at the end of today's interview. We're going to be taking your questions. We'll go around with some microphones. You can ask your own questions for Mike, so start thinking of your questions now. Mike, we're going to get to your great playing career and your time at ESPN, but first we kind of like to back all the way up and start at the beginning. So where did you grow up?
I grew up in Cleveland, Ohio, and our road to Notre Dame started with my brother Bob. When you're heavily recruited out of Ohio, if you don't go to Ohio State, you're basically a traitor. Which make the Golic family all traitors, because there were 3 of us and we all ended up here at Notre Dame. My brother Bob went to school here came here in '75, so he's way older than me, way older, almost like more of an uncle than a brother. That's awful. I apologize. So I think the neat thing for me, and for those of you that have been here, that are kids that are here and then will be here as adults, or if all of you were kind of that way, we're here younger and have been here for years, it's kind of the way I got to experience Notre Dame. When my brother Bob was here, to the age difference, he was 17 when he started here. I was 11. So when I got to come here to meet, see the campus of Notre Dame and meet the players, I was this wide-eyed 11-year-old meeting Ross Browner and Willie Fry, and Joe Montana and that group going, wow, this is unbelievable. And then when my brother Greg, he was a year older than me, when he came here, so now I was going to go into my senior year and I was being recruited heavily around the country. So as I came here, now I was meeting players my age, and I thought, okay, I'm going to be playing with and against these guys coming up soon. So I got to see Notre Dame in a couple of different perspectives. So that helped an awful lot. And the one thing my wife, Chris, and I, she's a 85 grad at St. Mary's, is when we started having children, we went into it saying we don't want to brainwash them to Notre Dame. But we brainwashed them to Notre Dame. So I think it was my son Mike, the oldest, when his junior year, he was on a trip when Urban Meyer was still in Florida, coaching Florida, and he was on a trip there with Urban, and my son Jake, who played here as well, was a sophomore. He came on the trip as well, and that's when I sat them both down and I said, listen, don't come to Notre Dame because your Uncle Bob did, your Uncle Greg did, I did. Your mom went to St. Mary's. Your mother's sister went to St. Mary's. Don't let that affect your decision at all, that our entire family basically went to school here. You do what you want to do. And I think I sold it. I said, I did say except USC. You can't go there. You can't do it. But they all made their, individual decisions as well. It was their goal. So, Mike and Jake played football here. They were both on the 2012 team that went undefeated. I like to say 12-0, and then we forget about that last game that they played. Mike is now with the New Orleans Saints. He just played his last preseason game last night against the Packers, and then he'll find out about making the team and stuff soon. And then my daughter Sydney is starting her senior year here, which is unbelievable. We were just over with her, my wife and I, of her taking her senior picture, thinking, my God, how is it possible that the kids catch us in age? Because I'm sure as hell not getting any older. But it is amazing. So it's been an incredible run. My brother Bob started here in 75, and it was straight through between my brother Greg and me till 85. And then we had the break, and then my son Mike started here in 08, and we'll have gone straight through until Sydney graduates in 2016. So we've been here so long that we just got the big sell today for the low seats and the club seats to try and buy those to keep us around a little longer.
Well, it's been quite a legacy. You mentioned, your two brothers. For you and Greg, was it difficult following Bob? He had such success, an All-American in football, All-American in wrestling. Was it hard coming here kind of after he was so successful?
It wasn't for me because we grew up, we were a close family. And again, Bob was a lot older than me. Greg and I were a little closer growing up because we were closer to the same age, but we all got along really well. We all trained together. So there really wasn't that, oh my God, the shadow Bob is going to cast when I come here. So much so that when I got here, I wanted his number. He was number 55, and I asked to get that number as well. And they did give it to me, so we both wore number 55. Certainly you understand what you're following and what he did. He was a starter here. He was a backup, and in the first game, the starting linebacker got hurt, and he was inserted in the lineup and never gave it up again. And he was 17 years old as a freshman, so he's a 17-year-old starting here at Notre Dame, and then went on for a 14-year NFL career, so I had to follow him that into the NFL as well. So, no, we never went through that animosity thing. We like I said, we trained together an awful lot, so that really didn't bug us.
And you got to be teammates with your brother Greg. How special was that for you to, be on the team with your older brother?
That was a great moment because Greg and I, we became teammates here. We shared a room growing up. Bob had his own room. Greg and I shared a room. And then all the way here where we were teammates, we were also roommates the entire time here as well. And it was just a natural thing. And that was very cool to do as a brother. But then one thing that happens when you become a parent, you want those great things for your kids. So the one thing that was very, very special for me is that all my children got to live out their dream of coming here on scholarship and playing here in their sport. But B, they got to share that year, that undefeated year. Mike was a fifth-year senior, Jake was a senior, and Sidney was a freshman. So they all got to be together during that as well. And I wouldn't have to say it, or they couldn't hear me saying this. If you ask them separately, Mike or Jake, what was one of the greatest joys you had playing here, they would say being teammates with their brother. They felt the same way. And oh, by the way, they lived with each other the whole time here as well. So for them, it was just a natural occurrence. So that's the one thing we shared growing up. But the one thing Notre Dame, as you all know, really embraces is the family atmosphere. When you get, people from all over the country, whether it's real family or people you don't even know, you all have the great, Notre Dame in common, and you become part of one another's family.
When you were a student at Notre Dame, what did you study?
You didn't tell me there'd be academic questions. No, I'm just kidding. I studied business. I was a business management major. One interesting, and I had like a 3.8 out of high school, and I did all right here. It's one of those, if you apply yourself more, you could do, always could do a little bit better. I don't know if I'd ever gone to law school or anything like that. Hi, Kessa. But doing what I did, one of the funny stories, Greg and I were roommates, and the one thing they do here, which is great for the athletes, is if you need help, they have help for you. They're not doing their work for you. And that's a beautiful, they are helping you. So that's the one thing I get aggravated about, on a quick aside, is when they say Notre Dame has to drop their academic standards to compete. No, they don't. No, they do not need to drop their academic standards to compete. I don't feel that way at all. The student athletes need to apply themselves because that's what you're here for. Now, 1% of, and we'll stick with football, 1% of college football players go on to the NFL. But when you come into college, and understandably so, 80% of guys think they're going to make it, which is fine. It's fine to think you're going to make it. But it's inexcusable, as far as I'm concerned, to be a student athlete and not prepare yourself in case you don't. You can train to make it, but get the degree along the way. Because if you don't make it, then you have your degree, and there's no better degree than Notre Dame, and then connections of being a Notre Dame graduate around the country. But one thing, the one thing you do, and whether you're a regular student or not, you go through struggles at times. And so Greg and I were rooming together, and I wasn't in the dorm for this particular phone call that came from our academic advisor. And the academic advisor, Greg, answered the phone, and they said, "Is Mike there?" And Greg said, "No, this is Brother Greg." And he said, "Well, we want to talk to Mike. He failed a test, and we're looking to see if he wants to get some help, offer a tutor to help him." And my brother Greg was like, "You know what?" He said, I'll tell him. And he said, "But I think it'll be fine." He said, "I happen to be in that class as well, and I can help him along." And they said, "Well, you were our next call. You got a D." Greg said, "Okay, we'll call you back." So that was an interesting time. But so I did study business management. My son Jake got his graphic design degree here. Mike and my daughter are FTT film theater and television majors as well. So all different kind of roads we took.
What's your fondest memory from your time as a player on the football team here?
Well, unfortunately, my time here from a wins and losses standpoint wasn't the greatest in the world. I came here and was one of the first recruits under Jerry Faust, who was one of the greatest guys around, but he was a high school coach coming into a college environment. He brought some of his high school assistants and put them on the staff, and there was a learning curve. There's no doubt about that. So our first, here's what was amazing though, because remember I had come off watching my brother Bob, their team have incredible years, including a national championship in 1977 when they destroyed Texas in the Cotton Bowl. Earl Campbell, my brother Bob had a monster game there, and then other bowl games they went to. So that's what I saw growing up. So when I came here, our recruiting class was ranked as one of the highest graded recruiting classes of all time. So we had a really good freshman class. We were preseason ranked number 5. We played LSU here, my opening game, my true freshman year. We didn't they call it redshirt, whatever you want to call it. You didn't do that a lot then. They do it a little more now. So we were a decent amount of us were playing as true freshmen. So true freshman year, we play LSU. A few of us got in the game. We destroyed LSU. And a couple of the teams in front of us lost. Week 2, we were ranked number 1 in the country. So here I am, this 18-year-old freshman, playing. Second week I'm here, we're ranked the top team in the country. So I have, national championships dancing in my head of like what my brother Bob did, and me and my brother Greg are going to get to share this and do this. We went to Michigan the next week and got, destroyed. We ended up 5-6 that year. I never finished better than 7-4. Probably the best moment of my career here was we were at Pittsburgh. Pittsburgh, it was about week 7 or 8 of the season. It was when Dan Marino was a quarterback. 4 of their 5 offensive linemen were going in the draft. They had top picks everywhere on that team. They were ranked number 1 in the country. It was Alan Pinkett's freshman year. And we went to Pittsburgh and we smoked them. And we absolutely positively smoked them. And it was a great feeling. We hopped on the plane, came back here, and when the buses brought us in from the airport, we turned down Notre Dame Ave. The whole avenue was lined with our classmates. And that's one of the great things I love about Notre Dame is there's no sports dorms. Is you live with people from anywhere around the country who are studying anything here. You're not living with athletes, or you don't have to do that. So that whole street, whole Notre Dame Ave was lined with Notre Dame students. And we opened the windows to our bus, and they were hopping in the windows. And just the community and the celebration and the family atmosphere was just absolutely one of the best I had been a part of here. I wish there had been more. I wish there had been big bowl wins and national championships. But that was a very, very special moment of athlete and student really kind of all coming together.
You went on to a great career in the NFL with the Oilers, the Eagles, and the Dolphins. But now I've had just a fantastic career as a broadcaster. At what point did you start thinking about going into broadcasting?
Never. They didn't really have that here. That film, theater, and television. They didn't really have that here. Communications. There's a young lady who was a couple of years ahead of me, Hannah Storm, who works at ESPN with me. I remember when she was here doing all the grunt work at football games and everything. They didn't really have those majors then here, so I never thought of that. I had that, and I try and tell younger players today, I had that initial thought, I'm going to play forever. and that goes away quickly once you get to the NFL. So you start to kind of make connections throughout. I never thought about the radio show that I was doing. I was active in the media. I did a little piece on Randall Cunningham as a quarterback for the Eagles. I did a piece on his show called Golic's Got It. It won some regional Emmy, which meant it was in the right place at the right time, basically. But then ESPN started calling and wanting to do, pieces with me while I was still playing. And I thought, okay, I'll give this a shot. I thought maybe I'll get into being an analyst. That's what players did when they were done playing. I didn't think about the studio work, but my career almost never took off because when I started at ESPN after I graduated in '94, I wasn't doing Mike and Mike. That didn't start till actually there was one guy before, Mike Greenberg, that I did the show with before it was me and Mike, which started in 2000. But I started working for ESPN in 1995. I was doing college games for them. But then they said, do you want to do something outside of football? I said, yeah, I want to be versatile. I'm a Notre Dame grad. Come on, I'm smart, for God's sake. Let me do other things. I'm not going to go tackle the Middle East or anything like that. But, in the sporting world, let me expand my horizons. So there was a great story about a great young man who was a blind mountain climber. And it turns out down the road after I did this piece, he actually climbed Mount Everest and with a sat phone called our show from it when he was getting close to summiting that. It was very, very cool. But this is years before that. He's a blind mountain climber, and it was in Arizona. So this is my first non-football thing I'm doing. So I meet him, and he has his faithful dog there that helps lead him around, just an incredible human being. So we went to, obviously, an area where we were going to climb, and he had the ropes out, and the dog sits right at the base of where he's going to climb until he comes back down. It's really a neat thing. So, we had to get our equipment up there, so the guys had to find another way to go, and I'm using the rope like he's using the rope, and we get to an elevation, and it was coming toward the end of the day. So we're on this beautiful ridge that we just climbed up to. The cameras are up there, and they're rolling, and it is beautiful. The sunset looks beautiful. So what do I say to this blind mountain climber? I said, would you look at this sunset? And to his everlasting credit, he's joking around. He said, I wish I could. I just went, damn. Cut. So yeah, that was a big mistake early on, but I got to do more and more outside of football. So that started. I love doing games. I'm going to get back to doing some games again, but the Mike and Mike in the Morning, which started in 2000, around our 16th year. Mike Greenberg from Northwestern, really, really smart cat. Truly we came from a different avenue. As he said, I came up growing up playing football. He came up growing up owning season tickets. That's kind of how it all got together. So we really bring a kind of two different looks in the world of sports.
You guys like to make wagers, on the show and often have very interesting and entertaining payoffs for those.
Yeah.
Last year, unfortunately, because of a loss suffered by Notre Dame, you recreated a certain photo.
Yeah, I did.
For those who haven't had the privilege to see it, can you describe the photo to the audience?
If I were to say Google this, make sure it's on an empty stomach. I don't know if anybody saw that Kim Kardashian pose she did where she was kind of naked with a trash bag pulled up to her waist and her back was facing you. It was oiled up and she had beads on and gloves on and kind of gave you that little cutesy look. Well, we were so confident, and this is actually my wife's fault. We actually did the show here the morning before the Northwestern game last year. And we were trying to think of a wager, and my wife came on the show, and she actually said, Greenie, there's no way Northwestern is beating Notre Dame, so much so that if they do, my husband will recreate Kim Kardashian's pose. My wife and I watched that game in tears as Notre Dame lost that game. So fast forward a few weeks, we're down in my basement. In my basement. I literally got a trash bag, some fake pearls, some landscaping gloves. I didn't have the kind of gloves she had. And I literally stripped down. My wife got a paint bucket and a paint roller. This is how she applied the oil. She's rolling it on me like a painter. To which, if you're married and, your wife, you're like, hey, this isn't bad, except my 25-year-old son, Mike, is the one taking the pictures. One of my dogs comes in, immediately leaves, and Mike, to his everlasting credit, he said, oddly enough, it didn't affect me too much. He'll seek therapy at another point. But yeah, I oiled up, I stripped down, and I did that pose, and I broke the internet, I broke cameras, I broke a lot of things. So that wasn't my best moment, that's for sure.
It seems like for both you and Mike Greenberg, your families have always been a big part of the radio show. Why has that been important to you to always involve your families in the show?
Well, I mean, I've always been a family guy, and Greeny's always been a family guy. So the one thing you can't do in a radio show, especially for 4 hours, is you can't fake it. My dad told me a long time ago, he said, just be yourself. Some people are going to like you, some people aren't. It's just the way it goes. Not everybody's going to like you. So for 4 hours, you certainly can't fake it. And we've always been family people. And we've told our kids, and my wife knows it as well, anything is material. Anything is. I tell the story about my son, Mike. My God, you think you parent your kids to learn all the little nuances of life. And then you find out the hard way sometimes that sometimes you assume too much. I forgot what year it was he was here. Nice though. He's sending his mother a Mother's Day card. Okay? I mean, it's a nice move. So he goes and gets a card and goes and takes it to the post office and he mails it. And then we go to the mailbox when it comes there and we pull out this card and it says postage due. And I look on there and there's a 1-cent stamp. That's the only thing on there. So I called Mike. I said, Mike, very nice of you to send this to your mom, but I said, why only a 1-cent stamp? He's like, I don't know. I went to the post office and it was this cheap. I figured I'll get the cheapest stamp they have. I'm like, really? Really? We had to teach you that? The price of a stamp? So these are so he got destroyed on air with that one a few times. But we have always been a very, very tight family, a very open family as well. And that's what we wanted. My wife and I, we said a long time ago, we started having the kids, that was our life. All our sacrifices will be for them, what they want to do. We're back them 100%, and we're going to be behind them because before you know it, they're going to be old, they're going to be with families of their own, and then my wife and I can go do our thing, do what we need to do. We have plenty of time for that, but we love our lives being our kids' lives.
That's great. We're going to take some questions from the audience now, so if you've got a question for Mike, raise your hand. We've got some people coming around with microphones. Don't be shy.
Don't be shy. Ask anything you want. Kessler, you can't ask any questions.
We got one in the front here.
They're going to go first.
Yeah.
I've always wondered this about just college football in general. Why do they not go to the college game and make you be tackled to be down instead of you slip, you fall to your knees, and you're down? Why don't they get to the pro side of it to where you have to be tackled? Did they ever have NCAA not rules, but yearly things they go over, new rules? Have they ever thought about being tackled in the college game to
Look at
be
you
down?
going right to the nitty-gritty of the game.
I've always wanted to know this for years, actually.
So what he's asking, basically in the NFL, if, say, a running back catches a swing pass and he catches it and slips and falls down and nobody touches him, he can get back up and run. He's not down. In college, if a guy catches a swing pass, he slips and falls down, he's down, even without being touched. It should be that way as well. I agree. But one thing I'll tell you is college and pro, they don't really like to acquiesce to one another. They don't really like to say we're changing this rule because it's like the pros and we think it's a better rule than we have. And there are some rules that the college has that the pros wouldn't change to because they don't want to say, we're doing that because the college is doing it. So there's a little bit of ego involved. But to that rule specifically, you're right. If you're not touched, you shouldn't be down. Yeah.
What's your thoughts on paying college players, and what issues do you think it would raise?
Paying college players, well, right now they're starting with this cost of attendance thing where players can get anywhere from $3,000 a year to $7,000 a year. I have never been, there's my son Jake, by the way. Are you going to ask a question? Oh, God. The paying the players, I've always said this, it's going to be very difficult knowing he's right there. is paying the players. I've always said this because, as I mentioned, 1% of the players in college will go on to play professional. All right? So my thought is, what are you getting as a scholarship athlete? Yes, you're practicing for your sport, but you know what I said happens? When you graduate and you don't make the professional ranks and you go out to your job and then you get a job, and when that first check comes in, guess what part of that check you're not doing anything with? It's not paying off any debt. So you know what? You're getting a pretty darn good deal if you're a scholarship athlete anywhere. And all the stuff I start hearing about, woe is the college athlete, they don't get treated well, blah, blah, blah. Let me tell you what, you're a scholarship athlete, life's pretty good. You get treated pretty darn well. So am I a fan of paying the players? Absolutely not. But I'll say this. If you're going to pay them, you better pay everybody. Because the girl, my daughter on a swim team, the guy on the lacrosse team, the girl on the volleyball team, they get their 20 hours a week, and they're working just as hard as the football players are and just as hard as the basketball players are. Now, I know those two sports bring in the revenue. I get that. But if you're going to pay these players because of the time they're putting into their sport, and then they still have to go study, well, all the athletes are doing that. So if you're going to pay one, don't just pay the football players and pay the basketball players. You pay everybody because they deserve it. That if it got to that route.
All right, we're going to take one here and then Jake.
Oh, God.
Hey,
Okay,
Mike,
yeah.
what is your favorite Lou Holtz story that you witnessed personally?
Well, Lou was not my coach. So I had Jerry Faust here. So Lou was not my coach. But I could sit and listen to Lou all day. Lou's unbelievable. Lou is one of the great motivational speakers out there. And I know players loved him, especially in their meetings, in the meeting room. So my only dealings with Lou have been at Notre Dame. Not at Notre Dame, at ESPN when he worked there. So I don't really have any coach stories about Lou. But Lou's just a fantastic guy that everybody in the world tries to imitate because everybody can.
All right, and our last question from the audience is going to come from another Golic here.
Yeah, you're talking about all these stories about how much you love your kids and everything, and we just want to know straight up. I was talking to Sydney. We want to know straight up who your favorite child is.
Okay, Kess is over there saying that was her question. She's going to want me to say Mike. Go away. Okay? Just go away. That's my son, Jake. Jake, again, graphic design major here, and he played a 6th year at University of Cincinnati. He snapped his arm here, had a plate put in, rebroke it, had back surgery. He's one of those players that, went through a lot of injury situations and unfortunately didn't get the shot that he wanted to in the NFL, which happens sometimes with injury. So because he's the one that asked that question, I'll say, Jake, I love you best. Hi, Sydney. It's my daughter. Sydney, come on here. Come on and say hi to everybody, Sydney. This is Sydney, my daughter, Sydney. Sydney's my 3rd child. Sydney's a swimmer here, and Sydney's my 3rd child, and I love her 3rd best. Hi, Sid. I love you. You can go back now. Yeah, go ahead. Do you need some money or anything? Yeah, okay. All right. Bye-bye. It's not a violation. It's my daughter. Stop it. No NCAA violations there. None.
All right, Mike, last thing we need from you before we let you go. We've got Texas coming into Notre Dame Stadium tomorrow night. Give us your prediction.
Oh, I think Texas by 2 touchdowns. Seriously, come on. Seriously, listen, I'm a fan of Charlie Strong, their coach. Let me just say this. I'm not one of those guys. I'm not going to sit up here and talk bad about another school unless it was SC. Then I would. Charlie Strong's, I love him as a coach. I love him as a guy, and I love him as a man. I love him as a coach. I think he's a great coach who stands for a lot of the right things in college sports. I really believe that. And I do think he will get that program turned around. It's fallen off a little bit. It's not going to be tomorrow. I guarantee you that. That's not going to happen. So I'm very excited to see how Notre Dame comes out of the gate. You do have a new quarterback in Malik Zaire, so even though he started at the bowl game, played a lot in the bowl game, it's still, we have to see what he's going to do. Certainly some good weapons that he has. The depth on the O-line is some of the best that's ever been here. You have the best offensive line coach in the country in Harry Hiestand, without question. So I'm excited to see where this goes with Malik, and that's just the way it is. There's a lot of pressure on a quarterback, and I think he knows that. But I think this is a team that's ready to bust out a little bit. If it's all the way this year, we'll see. But I think definitely enough to get off on the right foot against Texas. You know, everybody sits there and wants to score because all of you have gambling problems. You want to know. I don't even know though. What's the line on? Is there a line? The line 9.5. 9.5. That's a healthy number. I go over on that though. Yeah, I think Notre Dame by 10 points and 2 touchdowns in this one. I think they win that game.
All right. Well, Mike, thank you so much for taking the time
My
out and being
pleasure.
here with our alumni and friends. Everybody give it up one more time for Mike
Thank
Golic.
you very much. I'll hang around, see what you need. Kevin, real quick, do you want to tell us about yourself at all here? You want to get into this?
I think that won't be nearly as interesting.
No?
So I think
Okay.
we'll leave that one alone.
All right, I gave it a shot. No, thanks, everybody. Appreciate it very much, and I'll be hanging around here a little bit and probably nowhere near my kids right now.
Thanks, everybody, for being here. Whenever you come back for home football games, please come to Football Fridays at the Ack.